Wednesday 0, Leeds 2. So we welcome Leeds on Friday night. Tool's been hoping to get back on track. Bit of a tonking by Sunderland last weekend, trying to get back on bike straight away. One change to the Wednesday lineup. One change for Wednesday from the defeat to Sunderland, so it was Beadle in goal. A back four, well, sort of Valerie, Iofa, Bernard and Lowe. Two midfield players, Bannon and Ingleson. Valentin came in onto the right hand side for Gassama, so that was an attacking three of Valentin, Windass and Masaba, supporting Jamal Lowe up front. Sort of, but I'll come to that later. As for the visitors, Meslier in goal, back four, Bogle, Rodon, Struick and Firpole, Ampadu and Gruev in the holding positions, an attacking trio of James, Aronson and Mini-Me 50 Cent, Ganotto and Joseph at centre forward. And that Wednesday lineup, I've written it down there as a 4-2-3-1, which is what we thought it might be, Valentin in for Gassam on that right side, maybe just make us a little bit more solid. As it ended up, that formation was only one part of it. We played several formations through the evening, and if anything, I didn't think we looked very solid at all. Opening 10 minutes, classic Derby Day stuff, absolutely frenetic, 100-mile-an-hour balls pinging about all over the place. It's bobbling around the edge of both 18-yard boxes, and I thought, good, could have been for an entertaining evening here. But as the game sort of settled, Leeds grew into the rhythm, and Wednesday had obviously come up with a plan to try and contain Leeds, and that meant that we were shifting the system every sort of 3 or 4 minutes, it seemed at times. So there were the times when we were attacking, it was like a 3 up front with Masaba on the left, Lowe in the middle, Windass on the right. At times it was like a 5-4-1. At times it was like a 5-4-1. Valentin would drop into right fullback, Valeri would go in and make a sort of 3 central players with Lowe on the left, and then Windass right midfield, Masaba left and Lowe on his own up front. But what happened too many times throughout the course of this game was that with sort of half press, which is what Danny wants us to do. He wants us to go and try and win the ball back out the pitch, but with the front three would press. And I've said this before, I said it even when Darren Moore was here. If you're trying to close teams down, if you've got one weak link in the chain, you may as well not bother. And too many times in this game, a couple had gone press, one man didn't, they'd got an easy out ball. And throughout the game, and especially into the second half, we saw this thing where we'd slip into a back five to contain them. Fair enough, nothing wrong with that. But the front three had gone to press. Leeds broke through it, and then it just left two in the middle, Ingleson and Bannon, totally isolated, and they just played through us like that. It was like a bastardised version. You've got 5 at back, we can soak it. You've got a front three trying to press, and then you've got an isolated pair in middle, and it was just. You could see what the plan was. I just don't think it was executed very well, and it left us absolutely wide open against a really good team. It pains me as a Yorkshireman to say, but Leeds completely played us off par at the end of the day, and they've got some quality players. But I think Wednesday, much as they did against Sunderland, slightly different. We let ourselves down at Sunderland with individual mistakes. The whole team performance I didn't think was horrific, but individual mistakes have cost us. Against Leeds, I thought as a team, we were wide open. 23 minutes the first goal, and this is really an example of what I'm on about, is we try and squeeze Leeds right down in the corner, but not everybody goes sort of touch tight to their man. The ball gets played, that lovely, fantastic little ball round corner from James. They streak away down right hand side, and it's a simple finish, and lad cuts inside, and it's a little sort of clip. If I'm being overly harsh, does Beadle go down a bit early? I'm a big fan of goalkeepers just standing there and saying, do what you're going to do. If you're going to beat me, but I'm not going to, It's all mind games in it, keepers and strikers, but 1-0 down, 23 minutes, and I knew that was it, which is sad to say, but I mean, I work with a Leeds fan. We were talking about it in there, and he said, "Oh, what do you think?" He said, "Entertain him, could be like a 2-2." And but as I said to him, first goal wins that game. You know, there's just not that comeback in us. And yet, when we scored a first goal, as we did against Plymouth, or a poor Plymouth side, you can see it lifts everybody. And I'm afraid as soon as Leeds scored, I knew. There's a little spell here from Leeds after goal. Ingleson gets booked. It's a daft challenge, an heavy challenge, but it's one he didn't need to make. He could have just stood and just gone with his man. And Wednesday were rattled after goal. It's simple as that. And I think it was at Arneson. He had another good opportunity just after that, and they were turning it screw on us. I mean, it's not that Wednesday weren't attacking. We were attacking. I felt sorry for Jamal Lowe because he made some really intelligent runs. He would get in between full-back and centre half. We weren't finding him. A couple of times he's made a really good run. He's drifted, and then he's got right across front of man like you want him to, and we've been out wide, and then we've delayed the cross. And as a striker, it's the most frustrating thing in the world. You've made a really good run, wait for your opportunity. You met that little dart, and ball don't come, winger chops back inside. So then you're having to get back out and get onside again and then make another run. And it's just... I was as frustrated for him as he probably were. Wednesday went long at times. I've got no problem with that. And there were times when Beadle, would just smack it out from back when he got a back pass or whatever. And I've got no problem with that. There's times that Wednesday play it about and they encourage opposition onto him. And as we've seen against Sunderland, at times you encourage them onto you and they say, "Oh, thanks very much," and they come in and nick the ball, So I've got no problem with Beadle going long. The problem was, in this game, is Lowe's not that player to get up and win headers and flick-ons, and a lot of time it weren't that accurate anyway. It's sailing over his head, or a couple of times when he did get it, managed to get it down on chest. There's nobody within 10, 15 yards of him. You've got to get in it and support. To that end, I think Bannon and Ingleson were sort of caught in an half and half because the number of times they were getting mobbed in there, you start wanting to sit more. You start wanting to sit because you think, I daren't go forward, because if I go forward, I'm just going to leave people in behind me. I'm going to look like an arsehole. So, and I think a little bit that was starting to creep in. As I said, Wednesday were quite fluid in the formations, the systems, whatever you want to call it. And I think transitions is the modern thing, but there were times we'd gone to this sort of back five with Valentin, Valeri, Iofa, Bernard and Lowe, and that's fine if you soak it, but then in front of that, we'd got nothing in front of that ratting. Like I said, the Windass and Masaba were getting too isolated for me. They needed to really come inside and help Bannon and Ingleson in there. And probably the 10 minutes going into half-time, their centre-half, that Roden, he's 30 yards in our half. He's 30 yards in our half, just going, yeah, I'll have it. And he's just knocking ball about like bleeding Perlo. 30 yards in our half, their centre-back. And it just... I'm afraid it would have been a bit of a schooling. The scoreline, 2-0, in history books ain't going to look bad, but the game itself, I'm afraid they've gone to town on us. If I had to sum up the first half, I would say that Leeds looked relaxed and comfortable, and Wednesday looked tense. And again, that we saw this at Sunderland, the passing's off. Especially when you're a goal down, there's that tendency you're desperate to do well. I'm never going to accuse the players that they weren't trying or anything like that, but sometimes I think you try too hard, so you're rushing your passes and it's not making a man, or that tenseness, and you just miss something really easy, So going into half-time, they look really comfortable, but it's only 1-0, so you're in with a chance. Of course, 5 minutes after break, 2-0. Comes from a Wednesday attack, obviously kicking towards Cop, trying to get back in game. Really solid tackle, Valentin on edge of their box. Their lad comes in, it's a brilliant tackle, really. Ball breaks, turns, and it's a superb pass. It's between centre half and full back. It's one of my favourite passes. Not against us, by the way, but threads it through. Dan James gets on his bike, and I've seen Max Lowe getting a lot of criticism. Now, he didn't have a great game, but there's no way in the world I'm blaming him for that, because there's not a left back in this division going to beat Dan James to a through ball in a 60-yard flat race. None of them. He's on his bike, nobody's catching him. Lowe gives it a good goal, but he ain't catching him. Gets in box, superb finish. It's an absolutely fantastic finish. Again, am I being hypercritical? Should Beadle stay up a bit longer? Like I said, I'm old-fashioned. I like keepers to stand there and be big and say, right, you make first move, and if I can save it, I'll save it. But I think he invites him to clip it over him, if I'm honest with you. Maybe I'm being overly harsh, but it's 2-0, and that is the game dead and bedded. There's absolutely no way back. I'm looking at bench at this stage, and I said this again about Sunderland game, is you want to get back, and obviously 2-0, 1 goal, they can have a wobble. I just didn't see that happening, no one. When that's the case, I think you've got to say, right, let's just solidify this in here. So I'm looking again, what can we do, what changes can we make? And I said it in the Sunderland game, the young lad Frazier, who he really impressed me. And I'm old-fashioned, I am a dinosaur, I know that. And I still believe in the old-fashioned dinosaur cliche that games are won and lost in midfield. And we needed, for me, to get an hold of that area at pitch, because Bannon and Ingleson needed some help in there. Especially, as I said, the front three press, the back four turn into a back five, and it's just this huge gulf in front. And I gather that their lad has one man at match there, centre forward, that Joseph, and he was really impressive. He gave, Deschamps Bernard one of the hardest times I've seen a centre forward give a centre back at Hillsborough in recent years. He gave him a really tough time. But for me, the man of the match, both teams, but Ampadu. He sits in their midfield in front of that back four. He allows others to go about their business. He's solid. He's so calm. He's like a lighthouse in a raging sea. When Wednesday were breaking, he was just stepping into our player, and I'll have that, thanks very much, and just knocking a little pass out and getting them back on front foot and attacking again. When they were dominating ball, he's always available, like a sort of metronome. I'll have, yes, turn out, other way, off we go. We'll try and get down that side instead. Always available, even if it's just a little wall pass and someone can just play a little 1-2 off him. And that is the sort of player that I really want us to get. That Ampadu, for me, he's not one man at match award, with Sky or whatever official channels. But for me, he's man at match by a country mile, because he's just that. Like I said, he's like a lighthouse in the middle, calm, head, tackle, win, give, and just allows the rest to play. He's sat in there. It's allowing the Bogle to get forward down that right hand side and join Dan James. I mean, we made him look like bleeding Cafu. But it all comes from him. Just that steadying thing. And I love Barry Bannon. And I like Ingleson. There's so many bits to his game I do like about him. The way he gets forward, he joins attacks, he pops up out wide. But when he's doing that, you're leaving your mate in middle of the park isolated. No, it's tough in there anyway if it's 2v2. If it's 3v2, it's even tougher. If you're popping off up there and then you get counted on and it's 3v1, you've got fucking no chance. I just want to, like I said, I'm looking at bench and I'm thinking, stick the kid on, stick that Fuzier in there and say, right, you sit there, win tackles and let Bannon and Ingleson do a bit of ratting and do what they're going to do. You just sit in there and play a simple game, son. But no. I mean, they could have had a third. It's actually, I think it was going to be like a 3v2. We were really in trouble. And it's actually Windass does a brilliant sliding tackle to hook his foot round it and went ball back. So that would have been 3. Absolutely no danger. And we looked rattled and we looked all over the shop. And like I said, it's 5-4-1, it's 3-4-3, it's 4-2-3-1. It's 5-2-3. Far too many times it were 5-2-3. And I understand that thing, you need fluidity and one thing and another. I think it was Ancelotti years ago said, the days that you know that Milan are going to play 5 at back and Ajax are going to play 3-4-3, he said them days are gone. Teams have got to be fluid within the actual game itself. And he's right, football is going that way. It's becoming a sort of chess match. But sometimes I think you've got to have a simplified message and don't overload players with instruction. You go out on pitch, you've got a job to do. You don't want to be, right, he's there now, so I've got to be it. Oh no, now he's gone there, so we're switching to this. And I'd just like to see it simplified a bit. No, I like Danny's style. I like the closing down from front. I like the trying to attack at pace. But I still think that the core message has got to be simple for me. Beadle makes a really good save at end, actually. Was that from Dan James again as well? I think it might have been. Yeah, it could have been 3. I mean, the truth be told, if Leeds had won 4-5-0, it wouldn't have flattered him. But as I said, as a Sheffielder, that's painful for me to say, but that's the truth. Grimm's been weak. Now, he could make 11 changes. I'd be tempted not to make 11 changes. I'd be half tempted to put your first 11 out again and just try and get a bit of confidence amongst them, because our passing's all over the place. And like I said, it's not through lack of effort. I've come away from game and I'm not embarrassed. I've seen some overreactions on Twitter, worst performance ever and all that bollocks, but I don't think it's worst performance ever. But I just think we look rushed, we look panicked, and there's times, and you can see players' faces. Some people can't see numbers on back of shirts, but you can see players' faces, and you can see they're looking a little bit confused out there. Simple messages. Concentrate on doing the simple things well, and then build on that. Rome weren't built in a day, but first thing they built were foundations. Before you start making glittering archways and growing your vines on it, let's just get some big foundation stones in place, like finding your man with your pass. Do you know what I mean? Now, I'm not melting down about this, because obviously we've had 2 spankings in a week, and daft as it sounds, the 2-0 defeat to Leeds, for me, is more of a spanking than the 4-0 at Sunderland. The 4-0 at Sunderland, individual mistakes. This defeat by Leeds was a far worse performance in my book, because we looked all over the place. And like I said, it's not because they weren't trying. You could see they were trying. You could see the effort and commitment there, but they didn't look comfortable. There were a lot of this panicked look all night. Take it back to basics. As it is, Leeds were a really good team. As I said, the Ampadu, for me, standalone, best player on pitch. And the sort of player I want us to get. Now, obviously, we're not going to be able to afford to go out and buy somebody like him. He's a top quality player. But we must have players in this squad who can do a similar job. Like I said, there's the young lad in the reserves. I think he can come in and do a job like that. And we've just signed on loan Shea Charles from Southampton, who I understand, big, 6 foot. Obviously, his brother plays for us. And he's someone who can sit in there and be that fulcrum, if you like, in front of back forward, and a steadying influence back there, rather than everyone running about like blue-ass flies and they, forgetting to go with their man, which is something which is in danger of becoming a habit. We've seen the last 2 games. I'll go and close him down. Well, I've gone to close him down. Well, who's picking him up? Fucking nobody. And that's that thing. So hopefully this Charles is going to come in. Don't know if he's match sharp. I'd like to see him play at Grimsby. I'd like, get out there, let's see where you are fitness-wise, let's see what you can do, And as I said, Leeds are a good team, and what we can't do, I don't think, it is disappointing. I'm really disappointed, but what I don't think we can do is get too down about it, too stressed about it. We've got to remember where we were this time last year. Bottom of the table, looked doomed. Now, we've made some signings, some canny signings, I think. We were never going to be pushing for the title. We've had that one against Plymouth, but nobody should be getting carried away. These 2 defeats, I think, if anything, rather than being depressing, should probably be a little of injection of realism for us and say, right, it's going to be tough this season. There's teams like Leeds, Burnley, they're going to be tough sides. Luton, going to be tough sides to face. And as we all know, this division is sort of split into your 2 halves, and you haves and you have-nots in terms of finances and players and sort of everyone else. And we're in that everyone else category. And as long as we can finish somewhere between 10 and 15, I think that'd be a real good season. So, not getting carried away with the defeats, but there are things I want to see. If we'd lost to Leeds but we'd give a performance, I won't be that bothered. If I'd said, we've played really well, we've kept it tight, we've made it hard, and they've won through 2 moments of quality, I'd say, yeah, sometimes you're going to lose to a better team. But there was so much of that was ragtag, that was a little bit of a concern. Anyway, Grimsby week, like I said, I'd like to see quite a few starting lads in there, just to try and get confidence up, get in there. And like I said, a simplified message, because I found it quite confusing. But I've watched a lot of football over years, but I found that confusing. I'm looking, like you do, first 5 minutes, how we set up. So many formations in one game, and like I said, I know the modern weights, chess and this and that. I didn't see them doing too much of it, by the way. That was a 4-2-3-1, and that's what they did. We were 4-2-3-1, 3-4-3, 5-4-1, 5-2-3, 3-4-3. It was all over the place. I get that when you're doing that, and if you're doing it well, if you're doing it really well, you can cause opposition some absolute headaches. Where's he gone? What are they doing now? And they start looking to the bench. How do we cope with this? But when you're not playing well and you're doing all this stuff, I think you're confusing yourself, not opposition.